Power comes from the legs. People say you don't punch with your arm, you punch with your body. Both of those are true in their own way. But I do believe a good bit of coaches, especially boxing ones and people that do boxing, don't realize really how much you use your arm. Also, your shoulder is part of your arm, okay? You actually use your arm more in the process of punching than just your body, okay? You can create power via the pullback of one shoulder, making the other one extend. You can do it with the whip of your hip to the release of your opposite side shoulder, okay? To where one hip is pulling back and you do it in a way where the other shoulder's going out. You can do it in a way with your legs. You can do the, people have different names for the way people move their back leg for their cross, which I always, from what I heard, a cross means it goes across the body and you're supposed to turn into it. You're not supposed to be square enough where it's more like a lead straight, pretty much. There's ones I've seen where people done a Jack Dipsy falling step style, went forward after they stepped forward using a jab step and followed up with their rear foot and rear hand using a Jack Dempsey falling step. Some people look at that like, no, you'll get knocked back and this and that. I've seen different ways other people in karate, instead of boxing, instead of doing this whole pivot around, they'll just bend their leg forward a little bit, sort of, as they sink their weight into the ground. So when I hear, and I've seen a bunch of video clips. I see way more video clips now of people doing training stuff with the little ladder on the ground, etc., working on their mobility and their speed and other stuff. And they be using arm punches, man, when they be doing just speed or just getting down that, just the technique of their extension of their hand going forward and back. They're not putting any hip into it. Plus, it's really hard to put your hip into it while you're moving. It's easy when you're stationary, all right, and you've already got a planted position to do your feet in that. Plus, even just with bag work, looking at the standard boxing stance to stand there, you always need to stand there before you start. You need to learn to crawl before you learn to walk. You need to learn how to stand properly and feel good before you can start even moving around, okay? And people, with the 1, 2, 3, and then when you start to move, it gets more complicated. Instead of being used to your range, just being stationary, you now have to move. You have to make sure when you're moving that you're not, even back to standing, you're not leaning forward, your daggum head's not going over your knee, your guard, everything, your hands are tight, everything's good, you're not bowing out, you're not daggum telegraphing. And now you get into moving. You're moving back and forth with it. Your distance has now changed. How your body and feeling your weight and all that has now changed. Everything is different. Everything is different when moving. Okay? It's so much easier when standing to put every bit of your legs, your hip, your shoulder pullback, all that into it. Once you are actually moving, over time, it would take a long period of time to get all that perfect. Okay, it's way easier just to use your hip or just pull back of one shoulder, which, by the way, I'm saying your shoulders are part of your arms, okay? If you actually look, your shoulders are the only thing actually connected together through your back, or pull back of one makes the other one go out, okay? So the natural way your body is and does, the natural way, with that, moving forward, the most likely thing, most power, now at an angle, if you was a little bit not completely standing straight, but a slight angle, we have your stance where you pushed up off the ground and it would travel up there to your shoulder over time. But if you have a more straight up and you not have much weight on your front foot and you have a little bit of a tilt in that position, more of it comes from the pullback of one shoulder to the other than you imagine. And technically, every punch has a tiny bit of a push, especially if done that way with the back foot for that. These start off the power starts with a push, whether you're pushing from the ball of your foot for your whole body and leg to turn a little bit slightly one way as you rotate for that cross, or if you do more one of the karate styles where you kind of like go forward sync with your weight and you drop down a little bit and your knee bends, okay? Because your back foot, the toes are not pointing that way, both are parallel pointing straight. That still is a little bit of a push, unless of course you just go forward your front leg and just let the back sink, let the back leg sink and your hip drives towards the ground and your body will go something like what that as you're sitting down on your punches, okay? I'm not saying we should just use arm punches. Plus, more martial arts style than boxing, a different style of arm punches, okay? There are different ways you can use your arm, especially if you have big, long arms like me, to create and make power, depending on how much power you want. But also, the power in a boxer's punch will always be different than the power of a martial artist. People that are used to smaller gloves, used to more accuracy of their knuckles, whether it be 3, 2, or whatever, and making sure in whatever position that your wrist is correct to line the knuckles up, okay? Either way, make sure you've already worked out all your joints and everything and hit stuff enough to condition your knuckles. Make sure your limbs are strong, make sure your joints are strong, okay? That when you do hit, nothing, folds or cracks. And if you don't hit flat with your whole entire hand and only the knuckles hit, we are going for penetration. We are going for cracking stuff. We are going for breaking stuff. That's why we must condition our hands. We can't have soft, weak hands trying to hit people on hard bones. I know some people say it's pretty easy to crack a rib or whatever. To cause said damage, all the theoretical stuff and martial arts that people say we go for. I don't really see much bone area in the sternum. That's soft hands or not, I see that being easy. Okay. So when something that's so hard, it's amazing the physics of it with boxers and the boxing glove on their hand and how they hit and how some of it actually does come somewhat of a push. And you think, oh, that big old soft glove, you ain't gonna feel nothing. They have in the glove and with the wraps and all that, they have brought themselves to a way above natural human level, of power, that it would seem like a push, but by the time their knuckles get to where they need inside that glove, even with the wraps on, it's so hard it doesn't matter. Technically, a big old giant rock that's bigger than you, if it rolled over you, it would roll over you and kill you by pushing on you with its weight, okay? Now imagine a certain thing that's being propelled at you really hard, okay, and really fast. It's easier for something just to go on something instead of into something if it goes real slow. The speed added with that is for mostly a larger surface area, easier to do with the glove on than a small, precise area that your knuckles can penetrate. But it's still very much dangerous. They know what they do. They know to do with their two knuckles. They hit the gloves enough where they can understand where it's at and where it's at. Now, once all that glove hits somebody and it gets compressed as close as the knuckles get to the padding in that. Now, if you had two giant round rocks or spears, whatever, and you had this somewhat a little bit thick board over it, it's still going to hurt more with having this behind some somewhat flat cushion, let's say a wet board, for example, on top. You're still going to feel that drive behind it. You're still going to feel it. It may not be as concentrated, but it's concentrated enough to matter, to hurt like hell, okay? I know 50% I've been punched in the stomach by a boxer, and it felt like fire was down there. The only thing I'm trying to address here that most people disagree with me on is that you really use your arm more than you think. Dude I used to talk to a person overseas, he was talking about this and that with arm punching. He says, oh, when I throw my jab, I do a step with it. I looked at the video, they threw a bunch of arm punches. They didn't have their body and everything, especially when they actually got to hitting each other, got too close, and one of them got scared. And the other thing was, it wasn't in sync enough. I could walk and just stick my arm out. That's not the same thing as that. Okay? And I'm not saying I know everything about boxing. I'm not saying I'm a person that should be talking about this, and I probably shouldn't on some means. But I've looked at enough, I've talked to enough people, I've researched enough, I've done enough stuff with my own self that I understand there's still some gray areas that I've come across where people just don't realize. Okay? All I'm saying is your arm goes into it more than you would think. All right? Your shoulder's part of your arm. All right? There's two people on there, I forget, was it Purist Boxing or something? He talked about power from the shoulders. Shane Faison Fight Tips, he talks about you use your arm more than you realize. Okay? Arm punches fire sometimes too. And unless, of course, you act, if you don't pull your shoulder back, you don't put your hip into it, or you haven't stepped forward with a jab, and you just, by the way, you can extend and just move your hip without really actually kind of, I don't know, I don't want to say driving, thrusting or whipping it. That really is just following, but not putting no power into it. I could just move my arm so far and just start rotating. If it's not in sync, where both are being delivering actual impact on something together, that's not me using more than just my arm just to extend. Punching is more than just extension and retraction of your arm. As always, thanks for watching. I'll see y'all folks around.